What if Nagi Seishiro was never lazy, never unmotivated, never wasting potential, but simply waiting inside a system that didn't deserve him yet? From the very first moment we meet Nagi, the story whispers, "This guy is special," and then immediately shouts, "But don't worry, he's lazy, so everything's balanced," which is hilarious, by the way, because that's like saying, yes, this lion can one-shot you, but luckily he sleeps a lot. The audience is trained to believe Nagi's boredom is his flaw, that his disinterest is his limiter, that effort is the sacred tax even geniuses must pay. But what if that assumption is completely wrong? Because laziness implies refusal, and Nagi never refused football. He just didn't care enough yet. And that difference is not small. That difference is catastrophic. Imagine the same Nagi, same impossible first touch, same gravity-defying traps, but instead of skipping training, instead of letting Ryo act like a motivational life coach with unlimited patience, instead of discovering hunger after entering BLUELOCK, he trains seriously from the start. Not dramatically, not with inner monologues, no "I finally get it" moment, just boring discipline, repetition, control, precision. The kind of training montage anime skips because it's not exciting, even though it literally creates monsters. Because if Nagi trains early, BLUELOCK doesn't become his awakening arc, it becomes his speed run. Any percent completion, no deaths. And suddenly the whole premise breaks, because BLUELOCK was designed to break players until their ego surfaced. But Nagi doesn't need to be broken. He doesn't need humiliation. He doesn't need Isagi yelling philosophical TED Talks at him mid-match. His growth curve isn't explosive, it's exponential. The moment Nagi understands football as a system instead of a stimulus, the balance collapses instantly, because talent plus effort is scary, but talent plus early structure is unfair. Ryo didn't create Nagi's genius, he delayed it, by cushioning him, by making effort optional, by turning football into a fun activity instead of a craft. Ryo accidentally put Nagi on airplane mode. But in this timeline, airplane mode is off, notifications on, no excuses, trapping drills until touch becomes muscle memory, spatial awareness sharpened until defenders feel slow before they even realize they moved, shooting repetition until creativity becomes automatic instead of accidental. And now the Nagi we thought needed pressure to evolve becomes something much worse, a player who evolves without pressure, which is terrifying because pressure is what usually gives other characters hope. Remove it and hope dies quietly. BLUELOCK stops being a battlefield and turns into a laboratory, and everyone else becomes a test subject who did not sign the consent form. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Nagi's biggest limitation was never motivation, it was time. Time not training, time relying on talent to patch fundamentals, time discovering football inside BLUELOCK instead of before it. Remove that delay and the narrative fractures. Isagi doesn't catch up, Baro doesn't intimidate, Rin doesn't dominate, because they are all climbing while Nagi starts with the tutorial already completed. Think about it. Every major rival evolves through suffering, loss, and existential crisis. Meanwhile, disciplined Nagi just improves, calmly, efficiently, like a software update nobody notices until everything runs faster and you don't know why. His traps stop being flashy and start being guarantees. His goals stop being flashy and start being optimized. And efficiency is scarier than flash, because flash gives you hope. Efficiency deletes it. This Nagi doesn't wait for the ball to surprise him, he waits for defenders to make mistakes, which they always do. He doesn't rely on instinct alone, he stacks it with understanding. And here's the funniest part. Once Nagi tastes improvement that isn't accidental, laziness dies instantly. Not because he's inspired, but because mastery is addictive. Boredom disappears when you realize you're better than everyone else on purpose. And that turns Nagi into something BLUELOCK was never prepared for. A genius who doesn't need awakening arcs, comebacks, or screaming rivals. Just quiet domination that builds so fast, the audience doesn't realize what happened until the scoreboard makes it obvious. In this timeline, the question isn't, can anyone stop Nagi? It's how early does everyone else realize they're already late? Because the most dangerous player isn't the one who explodes under pressure, it's the one who never needed pressure at all. And if Nagi trained seriously from the start, BLUELOCK wouldn't be a story about finding the best striker, it would be a tragic documentary about everyone else trying very hard and still being irrelevant. And this is where things stop being hypothetical and start becoming uncomfortable, because once Nagi trains seriously from the start, the reaction phase disappears entirely. No catching up, no he's growing fast, no shocked commentators screaming his name like they just discovered fire. Instead, Nagi becomes normal, and that's the problem. He stops being the lazy genius and starts being the baseline, which is the most insulting thing imaginable to everyone else in Blue Lock. Isagi is out here doing mental gymnastics, calculating spatial dominance, rewriting his entire worldview every match, while Nagi is just standing there thinking, so if I stand here, the goal opens up. Cool. No panic, no sweat, just quiet optimization. And the humor? The humor is that nobody notices at first, because Blue Lock is loud. Everyone is yelling about egos, screaming about hunger, monologuing like they're in a philosophy class that charges per sentence. Meanwhile, Nagi is improving so silently that by the time people look up, he's already 2 evolutions ahead. This is the version of Nagi where Isagi's adaptability doesn't look heroic, it looks exhausting. Because how do you adapt to someone who doesn't change mid-game? Someone who already accounted for you before kickoff? Baru tries to impose his king mentality, only to realize that kings require subjects, and Nagi doesn't acknowledge authority, he acknowledges probability. Rin tries to dominate with precision and intensity, only to discover that Nagi has both, minus the emotional instability. And Rio? Rio is the funniest casualty of all, because disciplined Nagi doesn't need a handler. He doesn't need encouragement. He doesn't need someone explaining why football is fun today. Rio goes from partner to optional accessory in record time, and the realization hits him mid-match like a delayed invoice. Oh, I made this worse. And that's when the tone shifts. Because this Nagi doesn't play like he's discovering football, he plays like he already solved it. His traps aren't reactions anymore, they're setups. His positioning isn't instinct, it's premeditation. Defenders feel like they're late to a meeting they didn't know they had. And here's the scary part nobody wants to admit. A fully trained Nagi is not flashy. He's boring, efficient, like an algorithm that keeps outputting goals while everyone else is still arguing about input. And boring dominance is the worst kind, because you can't clip it into hype edits until it's already over. Blue Lock thrives on chaos, but Nagi removes chaos by existing. Matches don't feel intense around him, they feel inevitable. The ball goes to him, something clean happens, the scoreboard changes, repeat. No drama, no hope. And once that pattern sets in, the psychological damage begins. Players stop thinking, how do I beat him, and start thinking, how do I not embarrass myself? Which is the death of ego in a program designed to inflate it. This is where the humor turns dark, because Blue Lock's entire philosophy assumes struggle creates greatness, but Nagi's greatness exists without struggle, which is basically heresy. He doesn't suffer, he doesn't spiral, he doesn't have a tragic flashback explaining his motivation. He just trains, plays, wins, goes home. And that breaks the narrative contract, because anime logic says power must be earned loudly. Nagi earns it quietly, like he forgot to tell the universe he wasn't supposed to be this good yet. And by the time Ego Jinpachi notices, it's already too late. Because how do you pressure test someone who doesn't crack under pressure? How do you break someone who never relied on emotion to begin with? You can't starve him of opportunities, he creates his own. You can't isolate him, he doesn't need synergy to function. You can't overwhelm him, he's already simplified the game. And the cruel joke is this: everyone else thinks they're in an anime arc while Nagi is playing a simulation, optimizing outcomes, minimizing risk, maximizing return, which means every match he plays accelerates the gap, not closes it. This is where the audience finally starts to feel uneasy, because the question stops being what if Nagi trained and becomes why didn't anyone stop this? Because a disciplined genius doesn't announce himself. He doesn't need spotlight moments. He just keeps winning until resistance feels pointless. And once resistance feels pointless, Blue Lock stops being a competition. It becomes background noise. And Nagi doesn't even look excited about it, which somehow makes it worse. This is the point where Isagi realizes something is wrong, and not in the dramatic anime awakening way either. No slow zoom, no inner fire igniting, just a quiet, nauseating thought creeping in mid-match like a bug in the code. Why doesn't this guy need to react? Because Isagi's entire existence in Blue Lock is built on adaptation. He reads the field, absorbs patterns, updates himself in real time like a desperate software patch. Lose once, learn. Get crushed, evolve. That's the deal. But disciplined Nagi breaks that loop completely. There is nothing to adapt to because Nagi isn't changing. He isn't escalating emotionally. He isn't revealing new weaknesses. He's already stabilized, which is terrifying because adaptation only works when the opponent gives you something to respond to, and Nagi gives nothing. Isagi starts chasing shadows, plays that already expired, spaces that no longer exist, possibilities that were closed before he noticed them. And the cruel joke is that Nagi isn't even targeting Isagi. He's not trying to dominate him psychologically, he's just playing optimal football. Isagi, meanwhile, is sweating, calculating, gasping for relevance, while Nagi looks mildly inconvenienced, like someone forced to play chess when they already know the outcome. This is where the humor turns painfully ironic, because Blue Lock keeps screaming that ego is everything, yet Nagi's ego is so internal it doesn't need validation. He doesn't proclaim himself king, he doesn't demand the ball, he just positions himself where the ball has to go. And Isagi notices something horrifying. Every time Nagi touches the ball, the number of possible futures collapses. Not expands, collapses. There's no branching tree of outcomes, there's just one line, and it ends in a goal. Isagi's weapon becomes useless because Metavision thrives on chaos, and Nagi has reduced the game to a solved equation. And then Isagi makes the worst realization of all. I can't surpass him by thinking harder, because Nagi already did the thinking, offline, in training, in silence, before any of this mattered. This is when Blue Lock's philosophy starts to crack audibly, because it assumes suffering equals progress. But Nagi didn't suffer, he trained, he refined, he optimized, and now he's cashing interest on effort everyone else thought they could delay. Baru reacts by getting louder, more aggressive, swinging his ego like a blunt weapon, only to discover that intimidation doesn't work on someone who doesn't emotionally register you as a threat. Rin tries to escalate precision, but precision versus optimized control is just redundancy. And Rio is watching his own relevance evaporate in real time, realizing that the version of Nagi he helped create no longer needs a partner, a motivator, or even a narrative purpose. This is where the system-level failure becomes obvious. Ego Jinpachi designed Blue Lock as a pressure cooker, strip away comfort, force desperation, extract ego. But Nagi doesn't respond to pressure, he responds to clarity. And once clarity is achieved, pressure becomes irrelevant. Ego can't starve him, can't isolate him, can't psychologically corner him, because Nagi isn't driven by validation or fear of failure, he's driven by efficiency. And efficiency doesn't panic, it just executes. Matches start feeling shorter when Nagi plays, not because the clock changes, but because resistance disappears early. Teams don't collapse dramatically, they just fade. The ball circulation slows, body language drops, players stop making risky runs because deep down they already know it won't matter. And the humor, dark, uncomfortable humor, is that Nagi doesn't celebrate. He doesn't even look satisfied. He looks focused, which is somehow more insulting than arrogance, because arrogance at least acknowledges your opponent. Focus ignores them. And that's when Isagi finally understands the truth Blue Lock never prepared him for. You can't out-ego someone who doesn't need ego to win. You can't devour someone who already digested the game before you sat down at the table. And suddenly the story flips. Isagi isn't chasing the top anymore, he's trying to justify why he's still in the race, because a disciplined genius doesn't feel like a rival, he feels like the end game arrived early. And Blue Lock, a system built on constant escalation, has no answer for a player who skips the escalation phase entirely. Nagi didn't break the rules, he followed them too well, and now everyone else is trapped inside a competition that already found its conclusion. They just haven't read it yet. This is where Ego Jinpachi finally stops smiling. Not the dramatic villain frown, not the all according to plan grin, just a quiet recalculation, like someone realizing their experiment didn't fail, it succeeded too early, because Blue Lock was never designed to handle a player like this. It was built for explosions, for friction, for hunger sharpened by loss. It assumes everyone arrives incomplete, and disciplined Nagi violates that assumption entirely. He didn't arrive empty, he arrived optimized, which means Ego can't push him forward using deprivation because there's nothing missing. No emotional void, no unresolved insecurity, no desperate need to prove himself. Nagi treats Blue Lock like an advanced training facility, not a crucible, and that distinction terrifies the system. The humor, of course, is that Ego asked for the world's best striker and forgot to specify the process. He wanted Ego born from chaos. What he got was Ego born from competence, and competence doesn't scream, it doesn't monologue, it doesn't announce its arrival with lightning and soundtrack drops. It just keeps scoring until objections feel pointless. The matches start looking weird on replay. Not intense, not dramatic, just clean. Too clean. Like watching a professional speedrun where the player skips entire sections the designers assumed were mandatory. Other strikers are still playing the intended route, suffering, adapting, evolving, while Nagi is clipping through the map using mechanics that were always legal but never expected to be mastered this early. And the scary part? Ego can't disqualify him. He followed every rule, trained, improved, scored, won. BLUELOCK's metrics light up green, yet the narrative alarms are blaring red because the system thrives on uncertainty and Nagi is certain. He doesn't gamble, he doesn't force miracles, he removes variance. Which means the program starts losing what it feeds on, unpredictability. Players around Nagi stop developing the way Ego wants. Why risk growth through failure when the optimal move is to feed the guy who never misses? Ego realizes the contagion isn't Nagi's skill, it's his efficiency. Efficiency spreads. Teammates start copying his positioning, his decision-making, his refusal to overextend. Suddenly, BLUELOCK isn't producing wild, ego-driven strikers, it's producing players who want to be correct. And that is not what the experiment was designed for. The satire becomes brutal here because Ego keeps preaching individuality while accidentally creating a meta where the smartest move is to orbit Nagi like a moon around a planet. Even the audience feels it. Viewers stop asking who will win and start asking how fast. Tension evaporates. And Nagi? Nagi doesn't notice any of this. He's too busy refining micro details, touch angles, shot selection, spacing efficiency. He treats every match like a spreadsheet someone else has to live inside. And that's when Ego faces the impossible dilemma. If he nerfs Nagi, the experiment loses credibility. If he doesn't, the experiment loses drama. Either way, BLUELOCK breaks, because you can't market a battle royale when one contestant is playing chess and everyone else is shadowboxing. The irony is delicious and horrifying at the same time. Ego wanted a striker who could crush the world's hopes, and he got one who doesn't even register those hopes as data points. This Nagi doesn't dominate by willpower, he dominates by subtraction. Less movement, fewer decisions, smaller margins for error, until opponents feel like they're drowning in a game that suddenly has no water. Matches end early in spirit, if not on the clock. Cameras catch players staring at Nagi with confusion rather than hatred, because hatred requires belief that something could have gone differently. And that belief is gone. The funniest and darkest part is that Nagi still looks bored sometimes, not because he's lazy, but because mastery has made the game quiet, and quiet is dangerous, because BLUELOCK was loud by design. Ego realizes too late that by allowing a genius to train seriously before the chaos, he created the one thing the system can't handle: stability. And stability doesn't explode, it settles permanently. This isn't a player outgrowing BLUELOCK, this is BLUELOCK shrinking around a player it can no longer challenge, and once that happens, the question stops being whether Nagi is the future of Japanese football and starts being whether the future has already been decided without asking anyone else for permission.